Yeah, our website can get can access. Yeah. Welcome to the Greens and Blues 14er podcast. This episode, Zach cajoles men to do better on the mountains. I hire a new social media coordinator, and we work through a hodgepodge episode where we answer listener voicemails and talk about alpine divorce. Well, Zach, spring has sprung. It's actually sprung a while ago, but how are you doing, my friend?
Spring sprung in February in Colorado this year, Eric. I
That's
don't
true.
I don't know what you're talking about, my friend. But yeah, it is. Yeah, got a backpacking trip planned in New Mexico. Maybe gonna do some hiking with you in the Sangre de Cristos.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that. Trying to get in shape. This is the part of the year where I return to some staples of the fitness routine that have been neglected, like riding my bike a lot and going to the climbing gym and trying not to eat every carb in sight. So, this is a good time of year. This is the time where hope and optimism outpace reality by a significant margin in my world, which is a good thing. How are you, Eric? What's going on in your world?
We're doing good. We got some snow recently, which was nice, and it's basically all gone already. So, typical Colorado fashion, it never fails to snow and then stay on the ground for about a half hour and then it's gone. So, this spring we'll take whatever we can get. That's what we got going on.
Maybe on a more serious note, the lack of snow this year, I know we've mentioned this before, it is grim. You and I will mention this later in the episode. You and I were we could see Dillon Dam and the reservoir, how far down the bathtub ring on Dillon Dam has gone. That is not good. That does not bode well for the Colorado River Basin, San Juan River Basin, Rio Grande River Basins. It is going to be a very, very dry year. So
Yeah.
hopefully we get flooding level monsoons all summer long that replenish the dry soils. But the silver lining to that is a little early hiking, perhaps, for Zach and Eric, an extended season.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Hey, you were out of town recently, Eric. Where'd you go?
I was in the Bay Area. So, spent a week out there, which was great. I got to visit one of my clients for work, it's always fun to do so. And it's always great to be in the Bay Area. It was kind of in the 50s, 60s. California is an interesting spot. It's got some mountains, it's got the ocean,
It's
it's
got
got lots of
everything,
buildings.
man.
It's got
It's
doesn't have a lot of 14ers. It's got Whitney, and that's about it. But otherwise,
oh
it's got a
oh, don't
lot of
you
other good
throw
stuff.
that slander on the California mountains.
Uh,
It's got the Sierra. I've been teaching a cults class this semester. California is where they all come from, you know.
really? Oh
Oh,
boy.
California is like America just turned up a notch, like Spinal Tap reference turned up to 11. If it Scientology,
Oh,
California,
that's a good call. I didn't even think about that.
Heaven's Gate, California,
Oh man.
Jim Jones and People's Temple, Jonestown, California. If you're going to start up a new religious movement, California is the way to go, man. It's
Making
it,
me more cautious to go back and visit again, as I might get sucked into something that I don't want to
yeah,
be a part of.
yeah, you could be like a sun worshiper or something like that. That'll be good. I know I've asked this to you before, but not on air. When you fly in to the Bay Area, do you sing journeys when the lights go down in the city while you're doing it?
I normally don't, especially on the airplane, but it was in my head as we
Mm.
landed this time. And I thought, and we were landing in the middle of the day, so the lights weren't on. But yeah, thank you for plugging that into my brain and allowing that to stay there most of the time I spent there. So Steve Perry was
Oh,
there.
whoa. When the lights go down for Eric. I think that sounds good.
Pretty
I'm gl-
good Steve Perry there.
Oh yeah, yeah, you know it. I can hit. He has full. What do they call that when you have like full octave? Like he's got
Got like
multiple
4 or 5
range.
octaves probably. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got maybe a half. and it sits somewhere between tenor and falsetto. I'm not sure what that is. Well,
Yeah,
Eric,
glorious is what it is.
it's just pure gold, is what we're talking. Well, Eric, what are we going to do today?
Zach, we are finally going to address a couple of listener voicemails that have come in.
Yes.
So we've been waiting for a long, long time, and some of our listeners have obliged and called us, which is awesome. So we're going to tackle some of the questions that we've gotten that way. And then your wife, Kenzie, found an article that is very applicable to what you and I talk about in terms of hiking in the mountains. So we're going to kind of summarize that and share some thoughts around alpine divorce.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah,
Maybe,
hodgepodge episode.
maybe I should redo that. Just because he's missing from this episode, little bit of this, little bit of that. Yeah, there. That's all you guys are going to get of Macho Man today. But
Not missing now.
he's here. Maybe Sir Charles will make an appearance as well. So yeah,
Maybe.
some voicemails from a couple of our esteemed and younger listeners,
Indeed.
and then we'll have a little discussion of an article and update you with what the Colorado 14ers initiative will be up to this summer. So just a smattering of things. So Eric, we got this first voicemail, and who's this from, my friend?
This is from our new buddy Jonah, who lives in Colorado.
Not related to the biblical Jonah, I take it, who found himself in the belly of a whale. Jonah left a few voicemails. One just saying how much he enjoys the podcast, and we're not going to play that here, but Jonah, we heard it, and we deeply thank you for listening to the podcast, for reaching out to us, and for being such a really kind spirit, and for sending us a voicemail and breaking the ice. And then he sent us this voicemail.
Hey guys, it's Jonah. I had a question for you guys. I was wondering if you guys could make a series or an episode on the different 13ers, 14ers, or other hikes in Colorado that can help train me to be better around exposure, better with route finding, without it being a peak, so I can get some training in before I go and try to attempt some other 14er that might have high exposure.
Well, Zach, what are your thoughts around Jonah's questions there?
Well, I really appreciate Jonah's question. I think anyone that's dabbled in 13ers and 14ers and wanted to start to hike a little bit harder peaks has probably asked this question at some point, like, what can I do that gives me a taste of it without throwing me into it? Really, Jonah's question, I think, is probably a two-part question. What hikes can I do that give me exposure without giving me too much exposure and without kind of throttling it all at once? And the other one is maybe more the psychological question of how do I get used to exposure? So I'm going to answer the second one first just because I'm like that. I would say the probably one of the better ways that I've gotten used to dealing with exposure is actually not hiking, it's rock climbing.
Mm.
There are a lot of hikers that take up rock climbing as a secondary kind of pursuit. We've talked to Justin Simone and others. Obviously, Jerry Roach started by rock climbing, not really hiking per se. If you like to boulder, bouldering means climbing without a rope. And I assume if you're in Colorado, there's going to be a gym with bouldering somewhere nearby. And that's where you climb free. And at least here in Norman, Oklahoma, my gym, I could get 25 feet above the ground bouldering. They've got crash mats and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to fall. Falling from that height at my age, not. I see people like jump and dismount and those, and I'm like, yeah, good for you. You don't have my ankles, but yeah, I think that's probably the first thing to give you that psychological edge a little bit. That'll give you much more confidence in your body. And if you get higher up on those bouldering routes, it'll give you much more confidence just with heights in general and with knowing that you're going to be okay and that you're safe. So that would be my first answer. Eric, do you have, before I just rattle on for forever here, do you have other stuff you want to add to that?
Jonah sent us a note after he left us the initial voicemails that he did. And I think in my response, I mentioned something akin to what you just said around rock climbing, which is, I think it's perfect. I mean, you're going to train yourself physically, you're going to train yourself mentally. What can I do? How high can I go? I think that's perfect. As I was thinking a little bit more about it, I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record here, but I actually think that my favorite 12er, Bison Peak, might actually not
Mm,
be a bad idea either because it is trail most of the way, so it's basically class one for the most part. But once you get closer to the top, the trail breaks away and you kind of enter this landscape of what look like very polished, stacked rocks. And so there's not as much route finding, which I know Jonah asked about, but there is a lot of scrambling opportunities and they're all optional. You don't have to do any of them if you don't want
yeah.
to. If you want to get to the true summit, you do have to climb a little bit, but you can kind of test your limits there to your heart's content. There's all sorts of different structures you can climb up and down. I don't know that you get really super high on any of them, but I think that plus going to a gym and doing some rock climbing, I think those two might be nice introductions to, okay, how much exposure can I take? How much do I want to take? What am I comfortable with? How do I get more comfortable with it? I think those options might be nice ones to pursue and kind of get your feet wet a little bit.
I dig it. I've not been to your favorite place in the whole wide world, so I need to do that at some point. I'll add a couple more to that. I mean, if you're living in the greater Denver area, Jonah, you could look up lots of bouldering routes in the Flatirons. There's lots of places there where people have kind of cut their teeth doing either bouldering or real short climbing routes. I'm going to add my best like exposure routes for hiking on 214ers that'll kind of give you a taste. And those are, unfortunately for me, those are two of the best peaks in Colorado, but they're also a little further away from where I think you probably are, which is Uncompahgre. Eric and I have just sung its praises endlessly. We love that peak. I need to go back to it. There's a moment there, kind of climbing up, for lack of a better term, an alley where you're going to have some exposure, but it's safe. A fall would not be fatal, and that's a good little micro dose of exposure. And if you feel good about that, then you can go a peak over to Wetterhorn Peak. And for
Mm,
me, that's the best like light introduction to class three hiking that a 14er can offer you in terms of it's going to give you some exposure, but it's not going to be so much, and it's short enough, and it's right before the summit, so you know that once you do it, you're done. It's quick, it is committed, and a fall there would be problematic, but it's not so problematic. Well, I mean, fall there would be highly problematic, but the exposure is negotiable. It's psychologically, it doesn't feel like a lot. That for me would be the kind of next step up in terms of taste. I know that some people will do the traverse between Evans, or excuse me, Blue Sky and Bierstadt.
mm.
I think it's called the catwalk,
The
right?
so-called sawtooth, I
The
think is what
Sawtooth,
they
yeah,
call
Sawtooth
that one.
catwalk's another. That's somewhere else. The Sawtooth is another that's a little bit more committed, and you're going to be exposed for a little bit longer, but one that lots and lots of people have done. And then finally, I would add one that Eric and I have talked about, which is Pacific Peak. Um,
Mm,
Pacific Peak, if you want a 13er and route finding, Jonah, I think that's going to give you, that's a choose your own adventure. If you want to keep it at class two, stay on that North Ridge and just work your between Crystal and Pacific. And but if you want to make it a little spicier and a little more exposed, just deviate over to the West Ridge that juts out, and that'll take it up to class three. So you can kind of microdose your exposure there, like, and it's on these big, relatively stable boulders. So if you want to
mm,
stomp your way over to the West Ridge, do that. And if you don't like the feel of it, then it's tedious, but you can get your way back over to the North Ridge. So, and then the last few little minutes of Pacific, you've got some exposure there too. So those were my big suggestions for like. Sorry, I keep using like psychedelic terms like microdosing here, but giving yourself just like little wee bits of exposure so that you're not overdoing it. Those are my big recommendations.
yeah, love it. And Jonah, I think hopefully that gives a number of options for you to kind of work through exposure. One thing I would add is when we talked with Will Erickson the first time, he mentioned that he also doesn't like exposure, but part of what he's done is just continued, for lack of a better way of saying it, being exposed to exposure and kind of getting used to it. And I found that during the hiking season, earlier in the season, I'm going to be more susceptible to not wanting to be on an exposed area. If you're talking mid to late August, I've done enough hikes at that point. I'm a little more comfortable, probably a little more willing to do some 2+ or even 3 at that point. But so maybe later in the season might be helpful too. After Jonah left us his initial voicemails, he left us a couple more. And so I think we've got 2 questions that we want to cover off on from those voicemails. The first one, he kind of asks whether we have actually hiked Grizzly and Cupid or not, because we've talked about it, Zach, in previous
And,
episodes,
and these are
and
two 13ers off Loveland Pass.
they are. And have we hiked Grizzly and Cupid?
Why, as a matter of fact, Eric, we have.
We
Uh,
have.
we actually did a greens and blues collab with one another. That's a Gen Alpha term there. We went up in March. Eric and I got together for a day, and we went off of Loveland Pass. And because the snow conditions are what they are, or were what they were, we were able to actually hike Cupid and Grizzly together. So I think it's Grizzly D that's off Loveland Pass, or maybe it's C. I don't know what it is, but 13.5. And Eric and I brought snow gear. Did not need snow gear. We kept making like we would step in like maybe 2 inches of snow and be like, look, we need to throw on the tracks. We need to get out the snowshoes. But yeah, we did that in late March and successfully summited both. Had a really nice day up on the mountain.
Was.
Beautiful, beautiful day. Got a little cold and windy at one point, but for March, I mean, that's about as good as you're going to get. Eric was very kind to accommodate a guy that had flown up from very low altitude just a few days previous. So I was a hurting unit, Eric, when we were doing that, and you were really kind to go slow with me.
I think we were both sucking wind at multiple points during
Yeah.
this extravaganza. So, and Jonah mentioned he's done them too. So he actually recommended, hey, hope you guys are able to get to do those because I think he enjoyed his hike as well. Probably similarly without very much snow, is my guess.
I mean, in terms of like looking at peaks that are close to Denver, that I mean, obviously a lot of Denverites and Front Range people in general find themselves going up to Snicktow, Cupid, Grizzly,
Yep.
going off of Loveland. Those are pretty commonly hiked peaks, but I think there's a good reason for it. They're accessible, they're challenging enough. If it's early in the season and you just want to get out and get your body going and start acclimating to hiking, boy, those are good hikes. Especially the traverse over from Cupid to Grizzly. That'll get you going a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Uh, it's not going to kill you. Like I said, I did it after coming up from Oklahoma a few days previous, so it can't be that bad, right? But yeah, it was it's those are great peaks, and this year we were afforded some time to do it. So Jonah, you're right, we did it. Maybe we'll do like a whole episode of peaks off highways that we like to snag. Like there's some
Hmm,
off Independence Pass that you can do like that, and there's a few here and there that are kind of they're not freebies. Every mountain is earned, but a little easier to get to.
for sure. Well, and Jonah had one more question for us about getting onto Instagram because we are perhaps notoriously not on Instagram. And so I've reviewed it with our social media director, and as soon as he gets off his butt, we may consider Instagram. But until then, we'll have to see. That's even more effort than lazy old guys might be able to take.
Eric, we have a social media director.
Yeah,
What's his name?
it happens to be my first name.
You know, is it Eric Fredrickson? Is that
It,
his? Is did we do an internal hire for that one?
it might
Just
be. Yeah, we
promote promoted from within.
may have cut a few costs that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is kind of. we're joking here, but you hold a lot more hats than I do, my friend. You're co-host, you're editor, you're producer, you are technical expert. All I am is just on-air talent.
You,
So,
you're the Johnny Carson to
yeah.
my I don't even know what the heck I would be. Schlub on the street that you pulled off and said, "Hey, you want a microphone?"
um, we use the word talent loosely around here. So,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, Jonah, maybe we'll get on Instagram at some point. We're a couple old Gen Xers that I think the last time I posted to Facebook in any way, shape, or form was maybe a year ago. So we're just not good at that. And the world we live in. Eric, we have another voicemail here from a different listener that we didn't make up
That's
either.
true. We did not make this one up.
This is a voicemail from a woman named Sammy,
Yep.
and she's a college student, and she's got a question.
Hey y'all, Sammy Rodewald here. Really enjoy the podcast. As many people do, I have a goal to eventually climb all the Colorado 14ers, but partially thanks to your podcast, I'm interested in doing some 13ers too. So my question was, I'm thinking about peaks I want to hike this summer, and one of them is Mount Massive. Do you know if there are any 13ers near Mount Massive that I could bag on a Mount Massive hike that wouldn't require any crazy technical traverses? Thanks!
Sammy also sent us a question via email on gluten-free options, since both of us kind of are of that persuasion, and she wanted to know some gluten-free options near Mount Massive too. I've got a few thoughts on this, but Eric, I'm interested to your thoughts on 13ers near Mount Massive.
I guess I had two options, but one of them was actually a 14er. I don't know, Sammy, if you've hiked Huron Peak, but it's not that far from Massive. At least the standard route isn't. I know that it often comes up on people's quote unquote easiest 14ers lists. For some reason, that one kicked my butt. So I don't know that I'm going to put it on my easiest list, but it was a fun one nonetheless. But as far as 13ers, I haven't hiked this one, but I've read numerous reports about it, and I think it's really intriguing. Zach, you mentioned 13ers that are accessible. This one is actually accessible from Independence Pass, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It would be Twining Peak or Twinning Peak or however you want to say it. It's less than 6 miles round trip. It's class one slash class two. You're kind of hugging the Continental Divide Trail for much of it. You can park at Independence Pass, which is a giant parking lot,
Yep.
and you can actually snag an unnamed 13er on the way to and from Twinning as well. So that one's on my list. From what everything I've read, it's really straightforward.
It
If
is.
you want to tack on a 13er, I'd go after that one. So those are my thoughts. Zach, what do you think about 13ers near Massive?
I'm much more literal and lateral here. So I would say, Sammy, for probably this isn't your question. So I'm going to do the professor thing, and I'm not going to answer your question immediately. I'm going to give you a different answer.
Go.
For me, Sammy also in an email said that she's quite fit. She's a runner, has no problem with kind of long days. So I'm going to give you a long day. I would go if I'm going to do massive and want to get in some extra peaks and a little bit of route finding kind of experience and really want to have a great experience. My advice would be to go to the North Half Moon Creek trailhead for Mount Massive, do the Southwest Slopes route for Massive, so you can find a description of that on 14ers.com. You can also find it in Jerry Roach books. If you go do that and you'll get to this saddle, once you get to the saddle between, it's kind of the ridge line for the entire Massive Massif, and you go right, you're going to go to South Massive. And if you go over there to South Massive and you summit that, that's a 14er. It's unranked. And then you backtrack, go back down to the saddle, and then go up again. Then I think that will put you on the proper summit of Massive, which is Mount Massive. And then if you keep going past that, past the crowds, past the people doing selfies, past the people having snacks, you will summit Massive Green. And then if you keep going past that, you will go all the way to the north end of the Massive Massif to North Massive. If you do all four of those, to my mind, that's a really, really good day. That is what Jerry Roach would call a tour de massive.
Yep.
That's a fantastic route. That's a long day up high. If you're fit, you could probably knock it out in the morning. And then, if you really want to make it spicy and fun, descend off of North Massive into the North Half Moon Creek drainage. So
Mm.
don't go back the way you came. Descend into the North Half Moon Creek drainage. It's a little steep, but it's grassy, so it's not rock climbing. And you could descend into that. And North Half Moon Creek drainage is, for me, one of the truly special drainages in all of Colorado. It's a high alpine. There's a little lake there. The run out from the lake, so when the creek dumps out from the lake, it runs over these beautiful kind of sculpted red rocks, and it flows into these lovely little streams that have flowers and grass alongside them. And starting about late June, it's a delightful place. It's a good place to have a lunch. And then if you're feeling really, really, really up to it, from that lake, you can traverse across to the essentially the south and west, and you can reach the route for Mount Oklahoma, and
Oh, there you go.
you can go snag a centennial along the way, and that'll give you your 13er. So I know that's a bit not quite what you asked for, and then at the end what you asked for, but for me that would be like the perfect day would be to do all that if you can really hang. But if not, hike back up the next day and do Oklahoma. So there's also another duet or trio, if you want, Sammy, that if you want to make this into a multi-day affair, if you go up to the North Half Moon Creek Trailhead, there's a bunch of kind of open camping sites along the road there. Depending on the kind of car you got, if you've got a sedan, you're going to be a little lower down, but you can actually get a little ways up that road. It's also essentially the trailhead for French, Frasco, and Casco peaks.
Ah, yes.
And so you have to cross Half Moon Creek to get to those, and you cross Half Moon Creek and you go up kind of an old road. And there's descriptions for this on, I believe, well, they're definitely on the Cooney's website, climb13ers.com, and you can find them in Jerry Roach's Centennial Peaks book. You can also ask us and we can kind of tell you about it. But if you go up there, that's another trio of peaks. You'll have the place to yourself. I've been up there a couple times. I've never seen a soul. And that's a really cool hike too, up to some 13ers. You'll have to do some route finding. Those are Centennial peaks. Those are awesome, awesome peaks as well. So there's definitely some options there for 13ers that are like super adjacent to Mount Massive and to that entire area. So hopefully that helps Sammy with at least peaks in that area.
Yeah, having been, I think you dragged me up Casco many, many, many years ago, and that
Oh, that
was
was well, we summited the wrong mountain for a minute there. That was good times.
was it was fun. So you mentioned it. Sammy also asked about gluten-free eating options, particularly for a college student. You and I have both been there. So what are your thoughts, Zach, around places to eat not too far from Mount Massive that can serve gluten-free food?
Well, knowing that you're a college student, Sammy, knowing what that means in terms of you're going to be hiking, you're going to have high caloric demand, and you want as much bang for your buck as you can get. You did not say you were dairy free, so this recommendation is just a gluten free option. High Mountain Pies in Leadville. It is
Oh, you
a
talked about it before.
absolutely solid first rate pizza place in Leadville. If you're traveling solo, Sammy, go get a large and bring a ream of foil with you and foil up some pizzas and some slices and you could just carry them around with you and just munch on those while you're hiking, and there you go, you got dinner for a couple nights. So they have lots of gluten-free options. They advertise gluten-free. I think they have a clean kitchen as well, so they prepare it in separate spaces. So for me, that would be like the classic, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck option with gluten free. I always keep in mind too that if you ask, you can eat most Asian food gluten free as well, either with rice or rice noodles, and you can just ask them not to put soy sauce, or if they do, put tamari on something. That kind of keeps it gluten free as well. But High Mountain Pies in Leadville, you're going to access the North Half Moon Creek trailhead just south of Leadville. So for me, that's the way to rock right there.
That sounds fantastic. The only couple of options I had are all way farther away from Mount Massive than
I've got one in
Leadville is.
Albuquerque that's just
Yeah, I was gonna
dynamite.
say, you want to drive to Michigan? Let's talk. No, I mean, we've talked about Blue Moon Bakery and
Yeah.
Silverthorne 100 times. They have lots of gluten-free like sandwiches, breakfasts, stuff like that, along with their typical pastries. So
I
that's a great
mean,
option.
Sammy's a Flatlander. She's going to be driving out, and she's got I think she said she's from Nebraska.
Hmm.
She may be
Barbecue.
driving I-70. So, Sammy, go
Yeah.
to Blue Moon Bakery in Silverthorne. I highly recommend the gluten-free carrot cake, my friend. That's peak experience. What's do you got a favorite at Blue Moon Bakery, Eric?
I typically have the peanut butter brownie or the mint brownie, but you know what? Like Zach said, there's carrot cake, there's all sorts of cookies that they make, or again, they've got savory stuff, sandwiches and things like that. So lots of gluten-free options for you if you want to drive all the way up there, or like Zach said, on the way if you're on I-70, that might be a great option too. The other places I had were more actually in Breckenridge. So again,
Mm,
that's a good hour and a half away, but Whiskey Star Smokehouse is a good barbecue place. There's also the Crepes a la carte in downtown
yes,
Breckenridge, which has gluten-free options as well. So
yes.
there's a few places in Breckenridge, not exactly on the way to the massive trailhead, but if you have enough time and you want to make a little bit of a detour, those can work as well. So those are my gluten-free thoughts around within 2 hours of the massive trail.
And Sammy, if you want a total side quest, I don't know how bookish you are, but if you find yourself in Breckenridge, there's a really cool bookstore there called Old Man Birkin's.
Mm.
So if you find yourself in Breckenridge munching on a Nutella crepe, I would totally hit up that bookstore. It's well worth it. It's a lot of fun to go through their shelves. So just throwing that out there. But yeah, go load up on a bunch of sweets at Blue Moon Bakery, eat some barbecue in Breck, and then go get a pizza at High Mountain Pies in Leadville, and you'll have all your caloric needs met for the
Yeah.
next month.
Then
You'll
go tackle a Massif and a bunch of
Yeah,
13ers.
yeah, and then bring 3 vials of insulin because you're gonna have type 2 diabetes after you eat like us. So, well, we really appreciate your question, Sammy. We wish you all the best hiking. Hopefully, we see you on the trail this summer.
Yeah. Or send us a note. Let us know how your summer went. Both you and Jonah. We appreciate reaching out to us. And yeah, let us know how you guys are doing.
So, this next item, my wife sent me this via email. So, this is from a listener named Kinsey Simpson in Norman, Oklahoma. She sent us this article. It's on the Guardian, so y'all can find it. And the article is Women are being abandoned by their partners on hiking trails. What's behind? And then this is in quotes, alpine divorce, unquote. So it's a long and actually quite eye-opening and sad article, Eric, about women going through these experiences of maybe meeting a man for like a date on a hike or being taken by a boyfriend on a hike, and at some point in the hike being abandoned. There's a kind of common thread here, and the article calls this alpine divorce. I encourage all of you guys to read it, if only to have a bit of dread at the state of the world right now, and particularly the dating scene. But yeah, Eric, you read it too. What are your thoughts?
So when I first read it, the term alpine divorce to me signified, okay, is this like husband and wife where one of them loves the mountains, the other one is kind of left at home alone? And that's not at all what this covers. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, this is like dates, boyfriend, girlfriend, any sort of partner relationship is what's covered here. And my first response is this really that common? I was shocked to hear that until I thought back and realized, Zach, you and I watched this firsthand on one of our hikes just a few years ago. We were going up Sunshine and Red Cloud
Yep.
via the standard route. Red Cloud is what you hit first. And so you and I are just shy of the summit, kind of taking one of our rest breaks. And we see these two dots walking next to each other on the trail way below us. And eventually one of the dots starts going much faster than the other. And I look at you and I said, boy, that person ditched their friend real fast. And you looked at me and said, those two are not friends. That's exactly what your reaction was. And I thought, yeah, you're probably right. They're probably not friends. So that dot eventually catches us, and it ends up being this dude. And we're like, whoa, you got up here real fast. And he looked down and said, oh yeah, that's my wife way back down there. And we
Yep.
thought, oh, that's how this is going. Okay. So he just got tired of waiting and he said, yeah, forget it. I'm just get or he didn't say forget it. He used another word that starts with the same letter, but is not forget it.
And ended with
And
it.
he just and ended with it. And he just went ahead of her. And so because you and I were taking some breaks at the summit and at the summits, eventually we kind of found ourselves in different stages of encountering both he and his wife. And I think it was on the way back from Sunshine towards Red Cloud. We ran into his wife and we were just kind of trying to be polite and say, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need anything?" And she was clearly struggling.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, I'm okay. I'll be fine. I'm just not feeling it today." And I think you and I both read into that she was getting abandoned by her husband. And
Yep.
so we were very taken aback by this whole thing. And so that's basically what this article is talking about is the fact that guys are leaving their life partners, not just hiking partners, but their life partners on the trail. And that has all sorts of negative implications. And so yeah, those are just some of my initial thoughts. Way more thoughts even beyond that. But Zach, what are your initial thoughts on this whole article?
Well, I mean, at one point in that Sunshine and Red Cloud experience, I think we were coming down off Sunshine, and this woman's male companion was almost all the way over back to Red Cloud. And that's about a mile and a quarter traverse. And so he was probably a mile ahead of her. And there was no way of him knowing if she was in distress, if she was,
Exactly.
and she actually was in mild distress. She was going to make it, but I don't think she was having a good day.
No.
I have three big thoughts here. Anyone that has hiked for any period of time in Colorado has seen this. Usually men leaving women, usually men leaving women, I would say most of the time because they want to hike faster.
Yeah.
The article actually makes a comment about this. This is a quote from Julie Ellison, who is the editor in chief of Climbing Magazine. She says, "There's that male ego element to it that's not necessarily evil or ill intentioned, but it usually has a negative effect on the partner who's being left behind." I do think there is a certain element of male ego here. Men want to hike at their pace. Some of it's also putting notches on the list and getting summits and moving at the pace you think. That's really my first thought is that this is quite common, and it's common because it goes to a common source, which is something that men in particular have an issue with, which is we're kind of driven by our own sense of success and
Hmm.
overconfidence, nay, even arrogance. My second thought is the one that this is hiking related. I want to say that if you are hiking with a partner, you have implicitly made a commitment to that partner to stay with them throughout the entire day, if not
Agreed.
explicitly with it.
Yep.
I know we've said this before, and probably the people listening to this aren't the ones that need to hear it, but I'll just say it out loud. You don't leave your partner. There have been maybe of the probably 40 or 50 times you and I have hiked together, Eric, there's been maybe once or twice where you've said, just go on, and you could literally see the summit. And
Hmm.
I like scamper up to it, or you could literally see where I needed to go or something. And I go up and I come right back. It's usually max 20 minutes. It's mutually agreed upon. It is a decision we both make together.
Yep.
If you're going to separate, that is the maximum separation. You need to be within eye shot and you need to be not separated for very long. But in general, if you're hiking with somebody, you're buddies for the day. And here's my third point. If you're hiking with a romantic partner, you darn well better be buddies for the day. The
Yeah.
objective should be twofold. It should be to go out and get in a hike and maybe a summit. But the second one is that you are hopefully increasing trust and intimacy in your relationship, and leaving your partner behind violates both those because now, let's just say it, she is alone and you are hiking on your own. So you have violated trust and you're not talking to each other. You're not, dang it, if it's on the descent, everybody's happy on the descent. You got all kinds of happy feels, and you're usually all the endorphins are going. That is a time to bond
Yeah.
and to talk to one another. And you've completely neglected that. So, my third sentiment is men, you need to do better. The fact that this has a term, the fact that people are talking about it says it's way too common, and I think it is. And I think it's a sad reflection of how people approach hiking and how they approach maybe even dating and intimacy, but that's not the podcast we're on right now. So I'll kick the soapbox off here and you can say what you need to say here, Eric.
100% agree with everything you just said. And guys, if you're gonna go through and do this to the person you agreed to hike with, don't be surprised when she breaks up with you afterwards, because you did it to yourself. Your own selfishness is what drove that to happen. So have fun finding your next hiking partner, whether or not that's a romantic partner as well. That's whatever, but it's selfishness, I think, and ego that kind of drives guys to be doing this, and it's really unfortunate, and it can end up being deadly at the end of the day. So you don't want to be putting your partner at risk like that.
I mean, the story cites a couple examples of more extreme cases of people being taken into the woods and being left or abandoned or otherwise by either men that have too big of an ego or men that are in over their heads.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really, really hard to find a partner that wants to hike at your pace. And it is highly unlikely that your romantic partner does. So both of us have partners. My wife has actually hiked 3 14ers and a couple 13ers with me. She moves at a slower pace and she doesn't like exposure. But when I hike with her, I see things I don't normally see because she is just attentive to the beauty of the world around her in a way that I'm not. And
Yeah.
it's just a different way of doing it. And if I just slow down and just appreciate her way of doing it, it's way better. So I would say now all this is off the table. If it starts thunder and lightning, then you both need to haul butt down the
Oh,
trail.
yeah.
But short of that, just know that that's not the objective for the day. The objective for the day is bonding and not whatever the heck you're making it out to be. So
Yep. Great call.
I love
Kenzie,
what you said there, Eric. Don't be surprised if they break up with you because, like, that's like the article is like, yeah, and I got back home and I broke up with him.
yep,
So,
yep. And then experienced PTSD for the next 6 months
yeah,
because this jerk left me, and I didn't want to risk doing that with some new person, that I didn't know very well. So yeah, thank you, Kenzie, for sending that article to your hubby. Hopefully that was not a hint. I'm sure that it was not, but anyways, it was enlightening, and hopefully we can all learn from it.
yeah, I hadn't even, maybe I should be more self-reflective, Eric. I hadn't even thought that that might be like a shot across the bow. Like, hey, maybe you should read this. No, she sent an email in the email. It
No.
says this would be a fun thing to talk about on the podcast. So,
Yeah.
we have one last thing in our hodgepodge, our little bit of this, little bit of that episode. We wanted to give an update on stuff going on this summer with the Colorado 14ers initiative. Last year, we interviewed the chairman, CEO of CFI, and we just wanted to update you on where projects will be going on this summer. And it looks like this summer there will be ongoing work at Mount Chavano
Mm.
and Mount Democrat. So, and they started both those big projects last year. If anyone had hiked Chavano in the last 20 years, it was a mess. And so they're doing a lot of needed work up there. I'm sure Will Erickson is running up and down the trail supervising it.
Maybe as we speak, even.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Well, it is a Saturday.
It
Um,
is, yeah.
Will, if you're hearing this, I hope you're enjoying Chavano. So that's where their two big projects are going on. So if you guys can maybe plan around that and not necessarily walk into those projects, or if you're going to Chavano or Democrat, know that you're probably going to run into some trail crews this summer. And then they have their kind of nomad crews that are kind of running around. It says on their website that there'll be at the aforementioned Mount Massive, Quandary Peak, San Luis Peak, our good old friend Eric,
There you go. Yeah.
Sneffels, Elbert, Wetterhorn, Columbia, Capitol, and Princeton. So, smattering of other peaks where they're probably just going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on spots on the trail here and there.
Okay.
Really appreciate the work those guys do to keep the trails nice and keep the topsoil from flowing off into the Colorado River.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned some multi-year things happening for both Democrat and Chauvinot. I had the impression that the Chauvinot project in particular might be even lasting beyond this upcoming summer. Is that right? Or do they share that it's going to be done soon?
It's a 5-year
Okay.
plan and it started in 2023. So I would assume that they're going to be continuing that maybe through 2027, 2028,
Okay.
and depending on their progress. So yeah, Chavano was a big one. Chavano it was kind of a mess. There was a lot of
Yeah.
social trailing in sections of it. Other parts got lost through some willows, and I think the
A lot of
trail was
erosion happening.
there was a lot of erosion on that trail. So much
Yeah.
needed. And, there's that upper crust of 14ers, obviously, that gets a ton of foot traffic. Chavano gets a little bit less than that, but it's not like San Luis where, you'll get maybe 10 people on a weekend doing it. You can get 100 people on a weekend doing Chavano. So glad they're out there doing the hard work, keeping trails maintained so all of us can just check stuff off on lists and look at pretty views all day.
For sure. Yeah, we definitely appreciate the CFI, all the work that they're doing, and yeah, especially I didn't realize Chavano was a 5-year project. That's a commitment right there to making the trail for a single mountain much, much, much better for us. So yeah, we definitely appreciate that.
That may be the longest project they've ever done.
I
I,
bet.
well, I don't know. Maybe we'd need to have the CEO back on here, but there are clearly some trails that have been given some time. La Plata Peak has a really
Mm,
nice, the standard route on La Plata, not the southern route that you've been on recently, Eric, but that's a really well established trail too. So maybe some of these were longer term projects, but yeah, they're doing some work up there.
yeah. Well, Zach, what are we going to talk about the next time we talk about something?
So the next time we have a couple auspicious guests
We do.
on our podcast, John and Allison Kirk. And for those of you that don't know the names, John is the John in Lists of John fame, who maintains the largest, most comprehensive, most up to date, and accurate database of peaks, what, about 10,000 feet now in the US, some of Canada, and some of even Mexico.
I think it's
Um,
even lower than that. Like it lists the
is it,
high points of Michigan for crying out
yeah.
loud, which are like 1,000 something. So yeah, it's a massive undertaking.
So yeah, and Allison is his not just life partner, but also absolute hiking partner. They are prodigious hikers on top of
Hmm.
maintaining this incredible resource for hikers. If any of you know of Lists of John, it lists all these peaks, but you can go and maintain your own list. I've never done that actually. I just keep a spreadsheet because that's the kind of nerd I am. But yeah, you can go on Lists of John, you can sign up and you can keep a list. You can check out trip reports and so forth. And they're going to be guests on the show in our next episode.
Yep. We're looking forward to talking with John and Allison and kind of catching up to maybe the personal side of what caused Lists of John to exist in the first place. So that'll be a fun interview.
So, Eric, in the meantime, if people want to send us more voicemails
Ah.
or emails, I know this is a real thing. We've manifested it. How can they do this, Eric?
Yeah, Zach, we love hearing from our listeners. Obviously, we spent half our episode here talking about listener interactions. So, yeah, if anyone wants to leave us a voicemail, communicate with us through Facebook, YouTube comments, Spotify comments, you can get a hold of us those ways through our website, which is
Not
greens and
Instagram.
not. Oh, we may have to hire someone that's willing to work for free for that one.
Yeah.
Our website can give access to all of those ways to get a hold of us, greensandbluespodcast.podbean.com, or you can just go with old-fashioned email, which is greensandbluespodcast@gmail.com. Or you can send us a gift through snail mail. What can people send us, Zach, to show their appreciation?
They can go to High Mountain Pies and buy a pizza and get it wrapped in foil and FedEx it to my house.
Yeah,
How's that
there you
sound?
go. That sounds great. As long as it's gluten-free, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, and I'm especially don't do that because I can't even eat dairy. So yeah, what am I saying? What I'm just full of it. Yeah, we thank you guys so much for reaching out to us. It's so great to hear from people, writing a couple old dudes and asking them for their wisdom on the hills. It's really nice to interact with you guys. Nice to be able to fill a show with your questions, which are great. Because it's beginning of summer, we
Yeah.
wish everyone well and hope you guys are all off to a good start to your hiking season.